Good afternoon, everybody. Very quickly, we have Mike, Matthias, and David. Now, because obviously the last two gentlemen are a little bit competitive, we thought we would give them a nice, easy, soft start. Okay, so if I may, first of all, I'd like to ask how many people in the audience have English as a native language? Okay, so the English people sit at the front and everybody else sits at the back. Okay, got that. All right, so here we go. What I'd like you guys to think about is, first of all, do you think that travel is broken? Now, I happen to think that, but then I'm kind of an old guy, as you probably heard. How many people in the audience would say that they think that travel is actually broken, travel distribution? Nobody. A couple of people. Everybody else think it's all wonderful. Great. Okay. So I actually think that there's a lot of problems, and here's a list of some of those problems that exist. And hopefully what we're going to talk about today is just one of the avenues that technology is actually going to change some of those things which are very, very broken in our view. So this is an interesting slide. I don't know if any of you read TechCrunch, but if you do, I recommend it, because perhaps we are at the tipping point of the world where full employment is no longer relevant. In other words, our chatbots, perhaps the technology that will start to eliminate the need for us to have workers in the workforce. Just something for you to think about, okay? Because if you think about it, how many jobs actually cannot be replaced by a machine? How many? Start thinking about it, and if anybody wants to come up to me afterwards, there are only 3, and they begin with the letter P, and I'll let you guys figure out what they are. One of them, by the way, is priest. Right. You can't replace a priest with a machine, just to be on the safe side. So what I'd like you to think about then is, can we go to the next slide? All right, never mind. Here's an interesting statistic on this slide, though. Was in 1995, go back one slide, in 1995, there were 55,000 travel agencies in the United States. Today, there is less than 14,000. What happened to all of those travel agencies? They were replaced by companies called Expedia and Priceline, and other companies like Travelocity, etc. Now, I was the founder of Expedia, and it used to bother me just a tiny bit that perhaps we were actually putting people out of work. These 3 gentlemen are going to put a lot of people out of a lot of work. Some of you will no longer have jobs because of what they do. Think about that. Do you feel the pressure, gentlemen? No, of course not. They have no morals, they have no scruples. And that's understandable. So I guess what we're trying to find out today is to put things in a little bit of context. Is, what are they? Is anybody here who's English? Can you raise your hand? All right. What do you sit on? You sit on your bot, right? Okay. Just want to make sure for other people you know, what you sit on in English is called your bot. Right? Where do they fit? Well, of course, you can ask that question. But where do they fit in travel distribution? This is very interesting. Are they new? Are they a periphery? Or are they going to become part of the mainstream of what travel and the interaction with the customer is all about? In our view, they are going to become mainstream, and pretty quickly. But are they ready for prime time yet? These 3 gentlemen are strong advocates, and they probably will say, yep, it's going to happen pretty soon. I'm not so sure. I would like to take a little bit of time and understand how long and what form it takes, because I think a lot of that is not yet understood. So, is this the year of the chatbot? Maybe? Do people remember the year of the mobile? How many times did we hear about, yes, this is going to be the year of mobile? And it kind of went past us and we missed it. But I think one of the key things that I would like to understand is They understand with a relationship with the customer and the customer's trust. So does a chatbot, which is a direct relationship that you have with something, does it engender a better level of trust than perhaps the traditional forms of web interaction? So here's a couple of key questions just to give us context for the audience. First of all, can I ask which sector you're in? How many people are in intermediaries? That's your third-party distribution. Raise your hand. Gosh, you kind of got killed out by by Expedia, right? Okay. Let's do airlines. Who in the audience is in the airlines? Ooh, we should ask you guys where you come from, right? If not in airlines, how many in the hospitality space? All right. How many people think they're in technology? Yeah, you're all delusional. Nobody's in technology, or we're all in technology, not quite sure which. All right. iPhone or Android? First of all, iPhone? Android? Too many techies in the audience, that's the problem. Who's got both? I see, we're quite a few of us, right? Okay, good. Who has got some direct experience in working with chatbots so far in the audience? A smattering of people, good to know. And who has an Amazon Echo? Have you got it to work yet to do anything other than play music? I've tried to get it to order me pizza. I cannot get it to order me pizza. I'm still working on it. If anybody's got a clue on how to train it to order pizza, please come and see me afterwards. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to David, and he is going to give us some context. David, take it away.
All right. I've heard a lot of people talk about chatbots, so I thought I would start out with first telling you a little bit about our company, but then also share some research, because I think ultimately chatbots will only be successful if we build the right chatbots. So some of the things I want you to take away today is that most travel companies don't take Facebook Messenger seriously at all. They don't even respond to customers on Facebook, much less have chatbots. Of those chatbots that are live, they really don't impact the customer and the customer journey in any meaningful way. I would say most chatbots that are live today, they're gimmicky. They don't work. They're much like microsites. They're done by a little department on the side, and they're done very poorly. And after observing customer interaction with the bots that we've launched months after months, we've really learned that customers don't want commerce yet. They're not ready for it. They want customer service. They want someone to help them with a pain point that they have during their trip. And to build a successful bot, you really need to base what you're doing on research, observation, and how it's really going to fit into your overall digital strategy. So the company I work for is Travelaer. We do more than chatbots. We have products mainly for airlines, but we focus on the travel industry. But we like to say that we are the digital product company for the travel industry. So if you want to build a digital product, we're your company. We were the first company to help Icelandair book flights through Facebook Messenger. This launched at the beginning of August of 2016. And I was hoping today we would have the new bot launch, but wait a couple weeks and there's an even better bot going to be live. We're based in Nice, France. We have a very, very international team. We like to think of ourselves more of an American startup that just happens to be in France. But we're a very global company. We understand the travel industry. And if someone's wondering why it says Texan up here, it's because I'm from Texas, and it is a different language.
Who is the person who chose? I'm sorry, you haven't ceded from the union yet. Just yet. Okay? Just to be sure.
All right, we've gotten a lot of publicity for the work we've done on chatbots, but I would say more than anything, it's been a chance to learn, because building chatbots are quite difficult. I couldn't leave here today, at least, without telling you what our product is called for chatbots. It's called Conversational, but that's not the focus today. So In April of 2016, I think it was, Mark Zuckerberg introduced this new platform where you could create a chatbot using Messenger. And so we wanted to sort of look, 1 year back, what's happened? What's happened in the travel industry? What's happened with airlines, hotels, OTAs with bots? There is a lot of surveys out there and research, and this year, it shows people are thinking about bots as much as they're thinking about mobile. But we did some homework over the last, 30, 60 days or so. We looked at over 200 airlines, 16 rental car companies, over 40 hotel chains, and 18 OTA/meta searches. And we asked several questions through Messenger. We asked, can you help me book a flight, hotel, car, etc.? And then we also asked them questions related to customer experience, customer service. And I'm going to go through these very quickly, but this is what we found. Out of 200 airlines, the majority have a Facebook page now. It's shocking that some actually don't have a Facebook page. I would say a majority of those are Asian airlines, China, so it's blocked. So that's the reason why you have that number. But this time last year when we looked at this, the number that have a Messenger link was something like 20-something%. It was quite low. So airlines adding the ability to message through Facebook Messenger in their page is on the rise. But when we looked at airlines alone, they're not responsive on Messenger. If you're going to utilize conversational interfaces and conversational commerce, you have to respond much like you're having a conversation with one of us here today. Of the 149 companies that had a Messenger link, 107 didn't respond. Only 28%. So this is airlines. So it's you contacting someone through Messenger, only 28.2% responded. Of those that did respond, most just said, hey, check out our website, like a week later, and didn't even provide a link to that website. This is getting better based on what we did last year, but it's still not very good. Out of 149 airlines that we looked at, only 5 have chatbots. And my team just texted me before I came on stage and says, Mike, you need to change your graphic. And I said, why? They said, well, we just tried British Airways again. British Airways has no bot as of today. Qantas has no bot as of today. So this is actually 3 out of 149 airlines that we contact that actually have a chatbot. So how do you think customers feel when they've been going to maybe one of these bots and now they can't go to it anymore and there's no explanation? We looked at OTAs. OTAs are much better. 11 of the 18 did not respond. So 40% or so responded, and 61% didn't respond after a week. Of the 18, a higher percentage definitely have chatbots. So if you're looking at travel companies, the leaders clearly in the space, and we have the guys here today to talk about it, it's the OTAs or the meta searches. They're doing the most, and it's mostly related to commerce. We looked at hotels. You can get the pattern here. 45 out of the 46 hotel chains had Messenger link. 32 did not respond even after a week. So if you look at this, 71% of the hotels that we contacted didn't respond using Facebook Messenger. Rental car companies, much, much better. 100% of the companies responded. Some of them, like Europe Car, can even book for you with an assistant on Messenger. And you can see here, most of them offered some sort of help. So I look at this because 1 year later almost, since Facebook came out with this platform, travel companies are really doing nothing with chatbots, and they're really not utilizing Messenger, which is a great tool for them. So if you look at the stats here, of the 280 travel companies we contacted, only a third responded. And this is typically many, many hours later, sometimes a week later. When companies do respond, most of them just send you a response such as, hey, just check out our website, which defeats the point of having a conversation with a customer through Messenger. And even then, they say, go do something another channel can do for you. So it's mostly pointing them somewhere else. So, and the slides that I'm showing here, 9 bots out of all airlines and OTAs. And I said 2 of these is actually not working today, British Airways and Qantas. But the key thing here is, most people are focused on commerce. Or in the case, for example, Qantas actually had a really great bot that was very inspirational in helping the customer find a destination of their choice. Looking at the OTAs, they're still or the meta search, they're very focused on flights, helping someone find a flight, not necessarily a car or a hotel. But, so a lot of people say, why do you guys believe in chatbots so much? And the reason why is everyone here knows that trips are very complex. We know how hard it is to book a trip, plan a trip, and take a trip. So we've done a lot of research in this space, and this is an example scenario of someone from Paris going to the United States to ski in Aspen. And this one trip, there was 200 digital touch points. We're not talking about offline touch points, digital touch points. 26% of these touch points were already on Facebook Messenger or on Instagram. And then 23 of them were email or another type of digital communication like email, but 63% of them are happening on mobile. This is what it looks like. So this is the customer journey from when I decided to take the trip at the top, being inspired on Facebook, all the way through getting back to the trip. This is how many, I mean, there could be more, there could be less, but on average, this is what a customer journey looks like to take a ski trip.
Don't. Okay. Go back. Right. I want everybody to look at this slide because we talk about the customer journey. A lot of people talk about the customer journey. This is the customer journey. Finally, somebody has actually laid it out in a form that we can all see. Now, when people used to tell you about one-click booking, they were lying through their teeth. They still lie through their teeth. This is the real customer journey. Anybody who's got a mobile phone should be taking a picture of this slide.
I have to say thank you to Marina, who's at Travelaer. She has a PhD, and she works really hard on this for me, but she hated me when I had her create all these graphics to put on this page because she thought it was busy work. But the amount of cameras I see taking photos, I guess maybe it was worth it. So thanks, Marina. So just to narrow this down a little bit, it was 26 brands, 20 websites, 19 apps, or up to 19 apps. No customer is going to download 19 apps, I can tell you that. You're lucky if they're using your airline app. And I am talking a lot about Messenger today because I do think it has one of the better platforms to create chatbots, especially for the travel industry. But we definitely don't believe the future is only Messenger. I want to say that. But in this graphic, we do believe that chatbots can simplify this chaotic process that I was just showing up here. And that's what this says. We do believe that messaging in some form or another, whether it be Facebook, Skype, Twitter direct messages, text message, SMS, whatever it is, it will begin to kill more apps that exist today. And I always like to show this statistic. So, you think you have a successful app. Ryanair has the most on here for airlines with 7 million. Compare that to Uber. And I know Uber's not the as big in every country as in the US, and maybe it has bad headlines, and I'm going to say the word Trump just because you said that earlier, so I said Trump here today. But compared to Facebook Messenger, it doesn't even compare. And if you look at WeChat and other messaging tools in Asia and elsewhere, it's even a bigger number than this. So, our story is we've worked on bots, and everyone in here probably knows a kid or someone else or your web agency or your IT partner says, oh, we can build you a bot. It's no big deal. We'll build this on the weekend. That's true. They can. But building something that's going to make a difference in this customer journey that you just saw up here and building a bot that your customers are going to use over and over and over is very, very difficult. And I want to leave you with these. Research. If you don't have a digital strategy, you need to get one. And then you need to figure out how bots can actually fit into your overall digital strategy. The best thing about bots from my standpoint is my background is user experience. And a bot is like live user experience testing 24/7 because you can see every communication that happens between you and the customer, and then you can learn from this. So observation is key, and what we learn through observation, and I alluded to it earlier, is that customers aren't coming to airlines, hotels, rental car companies right now for commerce purposes. They're coming there because all other customer service touch points have failed in some way, and or it's a convenient way for the customer to get in touch with the airline, rental car company, or hotel. This is an example customer journey mapping that we do. We believe in this, and we believe this what helps us define how bots can really help. The top is sticky notes that we put together of a customer journey. The bottom is insights that we gained. And you can probably see the dips and the colored. That's where the customers were unhappy. Maybe that's an opportunity for a chatbot. Maybe that's a place where you can introduce a chatbot that can make a big difference. This is another customer journey mapping, and then the opportunities that go along with it. And I'll leave you with a few slides here, but we truly believe that commerce has a place within chatbots, but if you want to build something successful today, you have to look at what your customers on Facebook are already requesting, and that's the first place that you should begin. Being able to simplify the customer journey and their life and their pain points.
Thank you. All right. By the way, there will be time for questions afterwards. Thanks very much, Mike. I think it's very important that this sets the context for what chatbots are now going to be about. So you can stop thinking about Alexa not asking you the right question or you asking it the right question. So with that, I'm going to turn around to Matthias and say, let's hear what Kayak has to say.
Yeah, thank you. So Kayak is a technology company that operates websites and mobile apps that allow our users to compare the prices on flights, rental cars, hotels, and other travel-related products. We are processing around 1.5 billion searches every year. Each of these searches compares 100 providers at once. And our users can then compare the prices and in many cases also book on Kayak. Kayak is not an OTA, but we have a lot of deep integrations that allow us to do so-called instant bookings. Our product has, from the very beginning, always been very data-driven, and there's a lot of machine learning happening behind the scenes, sometimes also maybe visible for people from the industry. But now, just last year, we went into a new area of machine learning, which is the natural language processing that allowed us to build a wide variety of products that I'm going to show you here. We initially found, actually, at the end of 2015, that it would be interesting to actually open up a channel to our users, and this was a text message service. It was not automated at all. We called it Snap. People would send us SMS about where they want to go, and we would have people manually researching and sending them the results. Text messages were not a really good platform to distribute rich content, such as hotel offers or flight offers. But what we realized is that the questions were all very similar, and there was a lot of potential for automation. We started investing into a natural language processing platform that allowed us to understand natural language of users, to keep track of conversations, to relate that into travel inquiries. And the first product that we launched to the public based on this platform was our integration with the enterprise chat platform Slack. This happened in March 2016. It was I think we were the first big travel company back then in Slack. And we then changed gears a little bit in May 2016 when we launched on the aforementioned Amazon Alexa. That is slightly different because it is not typing and there is no display, it's just all voice. But it's still based on our same technology that we used to build Slack, and that allowed us to build this next application in a rather short time period. We then went back to a longer period of text-based applications when we launched our Facebook Messenger integrations in June 2016. Our first English version has been launched to the United States, Great Britain, and Australia. And we then quickly moved on, taking all the knowledge we have in Kayak from the internationalization of our product that is right now available in 40 local markets. And we were building versions for German and Brazil markets. We even went some gears higher when we then launched a Korean version in November 2016, closing the year or starting the new year with another integration that is based on voice, which is the Google Home device that you can see here, which is Google's answer to Amazon Alexa. And just recently, we launched our Apple TV application that has integration with the so-called Siri remote, so you can talk into this small remote controller and browse travel data on our website. The interesting part here is that it was this single innovation that enabled us to build all these products within a short time period. To give you some idea of how this product looks like, I'm starting with our internationalization. So this is like how our chatbot looks like in German. A German user running a flight search. The same view if you do it in Brazil. So you can see it's not only that we show Brazilian content, it's also Brazilian language. And the same for Korea, and I can understand that not many people in here can read this, so cannot I, but I have been told it's correct. If you look at what our bot is doing, we are focusing on supporting as much of the travel funnel. I think this is also what attaches very well to the previous speakers. And just an example how you would run a hotel search on this bot. So the Facebook Messenger bot right now, they realize pretty quick that people don't like typing, so there's a lot of focus on buttons and tapping. So let's say you start a hotel search, which is just one button away, and you are immediately in the first machine learning application, or actually not here yet. First, right now, you are in the personalization part. You have been running some searches before, and we just recognized that you have asked for these places before, so you may still be asking for these places because you are within the funnel of 200 interactions. You may also send your own location, which is particularly important on mobile. And this is done in this example. And now we come to a first data insight, which is that most of the bookings on mobile are bookings for tonight, which makes it a totally good choice to show this as an auto tap suggestion, which makes it very easy for the user. It continues with common lengths of stay. And once the user came down to the hotel selection, he can also get more information within our bot, which is here a map that shows the position of this hotel within Boston. And we are also, this is not live yet, but we are also trying to push the envelope on this integration and this seamless integration between native and web and bot parts by trying to integrate the Facebook payment integration that would, in this case, allow the user to pay his hotel room with the credit card details that he put on his Facebook profile. After the user booked his hotel, he immediately gets a confirmation about his trip into the Messenger bot as well. This is then very helpful during travel. He may not have in his pocket. It is available offline. And here, for example, he would see his confirmation number and the address of the hotel, for instance, to show to a taxi driver. If it would be a flight, we would also inform you about delays or changes to the gate. And finally, we can think about travel is not always going perfect, so there may be something coming up. It is not a classic use case of Kayak to do OTA-style support. We are still processing more and more requests, especially on Facebook. And here we are detecting that a user is saying something that really sounds like a personal request. So we are stopping the automated part of the bot. We are sending a notification to our customer care team, and they will take over the conversation from here. Looking into all this, what has been happening in the space and what we have achieved, we think that the chatbots are definitely becoming a serious customer acquisition and retention channel. We also see first patterns like right now there are 35,000 bots. Not all of them are great. Some of them are maybe even awful. But what we see is like to stand out in that crowd, while there was the initial, let's say, there was the initial boost from the innovation. The retention over time requires classic marketing techniques like actually even putting money behind pay-per-click ads that can now be bought on Facebook or any other thing of making this bot public. It is for the customer very interesting if you are from a generation who basically grew up within Facebook Messenger. And it is interesting for a brand because we can connect with these people in a way as they want to connect with us. And once they connect with us, we also have a better way to personalize their experience because they will always be the same person for us on Facebook Messenger. And while we don't really know who they are when they start chatting with us, we can over time remember from the conversation what they asked for, what they didn't like, and what they may enjoy. These travel bots and the chatbots, to be honest with you, it's fairly easy, even for the most advanced bots, to kind of like get them out of their concept and to basically make them say something bad, like our bot would say that his brain exploded. But this is just the beginning right now, and there has been this There have been like 35,000 bots just since last April when this interface became available through Facebook. And we can see that over time and the ongoing investment, and especially when you have the firepower like Kayak as a technology company, I'm expecting that these bots are definitely becoming better and better, and they are already right now useful for people who have a little bit of empathy, but they will become mainstream, and there will be a segment of customers who wants to use these bots more than installing an app, for instance. And they're getting also almost app type of experiences in there, because, for instance, while web pages usually can't send you notifications, our chatbot can. So this is our overview on what we're doing here, and I'm curious to see what Dave has to say.
No, give me the clicker. Right. So, has anybody heard of Lola? How many people have heard of Lola? All right. Anybody tried Lola? So Lola, as you may know, was Paul English. He was formerly the CTO for Kayak. So what's interesting to see is one thing that Matthias is making is kind of a scary thought. We are all very predictable. We as humans are remarkably predictable. So we don't sometimes know if we are talking to a machine or if we're talking to a real person. And unfortunately, what has happened is that a lot of people do not care, which means that you can have machines talk to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David and let him talk about what Skyscanner is doing. How does it feel with that $1.7 billion in your pocket?
They're not in my pocket, sadly, but I wish they were.
Oh, you should ask Gareth to share.
But thank you. So I'm David from Skyscanner. We've been dabbling in bots for about 2 years on and off with different things. We actually had natural language search in our app 5 years ago, and it was a little bit too early for the users, so we took it back out again. So this is almost revisiting things we did before. I was going to introduce Skyscanner very quickly and say it's like Kayak, but better, but my new friend wouldn't like me for that very much. So similar type of thing. We're a meta search that deals directly with our partners, airlines, hotels, car rental companies. But from where I stand, we also integrate that data back out again. So we're very keen on integrations with third parties, which is partly why we're here this week, that we love to help people build travel products with our data in them and try and power the travel internet, as we say. So we sit in the middle of all these things, and it's that third-party work that led us to work on chatbots and voice in the first place. Just to go through a little bit of numbers, we are in 30 languages. We have over 50 million users, lots of repeat sessions, lots of tickets booked, and we're growing fast, which we have been for about 14 years now. The timeline's what you see there that led to the acquisition that was just mentioned a second ago, about 3 months ago, where we're now part of Ctrip, a Chinese travel search company. So that's us. I'm not going to tell you too much more about Skyscanner. But as I said, along the way, we've worked on many things to extend what we do as a product. And along that way, we generated over 40 million app downloads, which we're quite proud of. The app's rated, I think, about 4.6 in the app stores. So we've taken great care over that. But if you look at the app, and as I say, we're very proud of it, we feel that there are something like 11 minimum steps that you need to use to find the flight you actually want. You could do it slightly quicker if you don't filter anything, or if the first result is actually the one you want. Hopefully it is, but in general, there are something like 11 steps, taps on a phone to get what you want. If you think in terms of pure taps, it's actually 17, because you have to put 2 airport codes as a minimum to generate the search. And that's not a jarring experience, but it's still more work than you should actually want. And if you think about taking that set of steps into a phrase, if you could just say, get me the KLM flight from Emirates Amsterdam tomorrow afternoon, please, that is basically the same thing in one hit. To me, that's far less friction, because I knew what I wanted before I did the tapping on the phone. So this is what we're trying to get people away from, and where we want to get to, that we can process that question very quickly and get people to what they want. And the model was always there. WeChat's been building up for many years. The last number I was able to get was 818 million monthly active users, 22% of which have a credit card registered in their account, which can be used for any WeChat partner to process purchases. And when they launched taxi rides with Didi in China a couple of years ago, there were something like 21 million rides booked within WeChat in the first 4 weeks. Now again, many of them were subsidized, so the cost was partly the factor, but the growth was maintained afterwards, and people are very used to the experience of saying, get me a taxi here, and the mobile app knows where it needs to send it. And if you look at some of the reports that are generated every summer by Mary Maker and Kleiner Perkins, most of the apps where people spend their time are conversational, or they're messaging platforms already. I mean, it was mentioned earlier on that Messenger is a prevalent platform, and travel companies especially don't make enough use of it. But there are others, and most of the things people choose to do on their phone, whether it's pure numbers of sessions or actual time spent, they're messaging apps. And for the last 3 or 4 years, this has been a very consistent pattern. The numbers have changed a little bit, and the rankings changed a little bit. But there they are. So why wouldn't you go after users where they prefer to be? And we force people to download apps. We send them to websites that are hard work to use, but they live in these other places. So why try and chase them somewhere else? And so we've been looking at the different places we could go and where the opportunities are to actually build for these things, what's available now and what's coming later. So WhatsApp is one of the golden prizes because it's not really open for development yet. They say they're testing some things, so that can't be done. But we've chosen to go for Messenger, Skype, and Alexa for different reasons. We just thought there are different audiences to hit. Messenger's generally a consumer platform. Skype is more family and business focused. There's a little bit different element to it, and you can do group conversations. They're far more common, so something different. And clearly Alexa's a voice platform that is a different thing to test. But for us, it was to learn and see what people do. And although we've built effectively a flight shopping funnel, so it's back to commercial rather than customer service and inspiration and things like that, we thought we'd try the hard thing first and work back from it to see if people would use that, because that's the brave thing to do. We've been doing these for about 18 months in production now, and what we want to do is give you some lessons or do's and don'ts that we've found over the years, which I'll come to. Now, why did we get into this in the first place? This is a great quote I always use from Suman Debroy, a data scientist. Apps were in the business of selling us distraction, because generally they do. They take you away from what you're doing. They're not complementary to what you do. Bots will buy you time because you can send them off to do something that you don't want to, which comes back to the old replacement of humans that was mentioned earlier on. But that's really why they exist. Now, when does a bot become an agent? At what point does the thing you build genuinely become something you leave to attend to something for you? So go and buy a flight tomorrow, please, or go and tell me when the price changes and buy it then. Get me the concert ticket so I don't have to wait 3 hours in a line for it. And that's an example that has always been used. This is Operator, which launched in the States 2-3 years ago with a prototype for booking tickets that gets you away from 3 hours watching Ticketmaster until the ticket you actually want is available at the price you want. Tell it to go and do that and tell you when it's booked. And of course, there's an opportunity for the travel industry to do things like this because it makes upsell much more possible. So you've got the ticket, therefore you must need the travel. So there's a reason to get involved in that and actually be a proactive agent. You've given the instruction to book the ticket. The agent then uses some level of intelligence to tell you what you need to use the ticket.
You've just struck fear in the heart of every airline in the audience.
And as I say, it comes back to conversation, which is you asking the bot some questions to get what you want, which is generally what they do today, to giving an assistant an instruction. So book me the KLM flight. Don't find me, book me, go and do it. And if you could extend that to something a bit more diverse, to say, book me the same flight I had last month, but add speedy boarding this time, and just go and assume that's done, that's not a leap from where we are today, really. I mean, we can understand what the user wanted, as long as we know who the user is, and they volunteer a little piece of history to us, that's not too hard. So some do's and don'ts, as I mentioned, that we've found over the last year, and I hope these are useful to you. Think twice before building any new product. Mike mentioned this earlier on. So think about products as a set. today, for you, bots may not fit into that. It's not for everybody. And everybody dives into fads and fashions, but you have to really think if you're improving your product set by adding one of these. I bet a lot of people have actually made their product worse and given people a bad experience, and that's bad for your brand generally. So don't just follow the fashion. Think about it and do it for the right reasons. And if you think about the app industry, I mentioned our app that we're really happy with, but we can always try and do different and better things. 90% of the 3 million apps in the iTunes and Google Play stores are what's called zombies. They were put there for marketing or other bad reasons, really, and never updated since. They just lie there. And Apple's made an effort to get rid of quite a few, but they don't help any brand at all, just sitting there doing nothing. And also, go back to the drawing board. Don't just go and dive in and buy a bot or build a bot or get your son to build you a bot, which is the kind of thing that happens. Think it through. So that was one of our very first sketches before we made an Alexa skill, to actually work through what the conversation might look like in pieces of information that we actually needed. What does the flow of the conversation feel like? What's the user actually going to say back? What can you say to the user to provoke the phrase you want from them to get to the next step? It's a user experience design, really, but don't code anything until you think you can make that work. So we've gone from that single whiteboard 2 years ago to that, which is actually a few months out of date now, but that is now the spaghetti of our chatbot experience and the different ways it can go. And we constantly think about how to improve that, take steps away if we need to, because some of them we tried and took them out for good reasons, because they just weren't improving it. And we constantly add to this. And we're very careful as we add functionality to make sure the whole experience sticks together. Treat bot users like they've downloaded an app. So people would never launch an app now without onboarding the user and trying to teach them how to use it. The first use experience is critical. Many bots that went out were just 3 buttons or some text, and that was it. You had to find your own way through it, on the assumption that users would say, what do you do? Or how do I use this? And then you've got to build answers you shouldn't really be answering. So we were pretty bad at this, and I'll be honest, this was our first Skype bot welcome message. And the nearest we got to making it human was sticking a little emoji at the top. Now, if you were to try and read your way through that on the first experience, you'd probably close it down and not come back, because it's not very good. And the retention on that bot was next to 0. Not quite, but nearly 0. So we quickly pivoted and did a few other things, just simple changes like that to make it optional straight away. What can you do? Present some ready-made buttons to let people get going. Retention went through the roof overnight and is actually quite good now. It compares very well to other platforms we have as a retention product. And then add other things. So when people come back, remind them things they could do that they forgot. So any app that's worth its money is always going to give you tips about what to do next and prompt to show you what to do. We're the same. We add little things to say, just tell us where you live or tell us your favorite airport, so we never have to ask you again. And it just makes the whole experience a little bit quicker. And then we got to the latest incarnation of our onboarding that's a carousel of things we can do. And we tried to make it just that bit more friendly. And again, retention has increased even more since we did that. So just some things that might be obvious, but when you're thinking about conversations and text and so on, it's not always obvious that you do things like this instead and actually make them like miniature apps. Don't build something that's far too complicated, because if it's complicated to build, it's going to be complicated to use 9 times out of 10. And if you go to the spaghetti, if we'd started with the big chart that I showed you a few minutes ago on day 1, we'd never have continued, and we probably have got it really badly wrong. So start with something simple, learn from it, add to it, refine it as you go. Again, it's simple product development, but people tend to forget that when they're chasing fashionable apps. If you think about pizza, which was mentioned a little while ago, there's been a debate, and it's actually on Stack Overflow if you want to Google for it, what the actual number of pizza combinations are on a Domino's menu. It was thought to be 6 million, then it was 34. Now it's been computed at 16 billion different combinations of things that you could ask for as you build your own pizza. So their very first go at conversational commerce was, order me the last pizza again, one phrase. And actually it took 710 variations of that phrase to make it useful enough that humans would always say the right thing, but they got it to work. And Just Eat, the takeaway company, does order me my favorite curry, which you've then pre-registered on the site with your payment details, and that's it, done. So why not do anything less complicated than that. It just doesn't make any sense. Make it clear you're speaking to a bot and not a human, or make it clear when you are speaking to a human. Because people behave very differently, and I can share this with you, that on the first day we launched with Facebook Messenger, we did have some people watching the conversation to see if people were lost and actually go in and help them out and give them a bit of a handhold. And then suddenly people realized they were talking to a human, and within 6 hours somebody asked the human for sex. And that's how people behave, which is horrible, but the whole reaction is different as soon as you do that. So make it very, very clear what you're doing, and just don't make it too vague, because it does spoil the whole experience. Lean on the platform, which is a phrase I love to use with these things. Think, before getting into really deep conversations and what people call artificial intelligence and machine learning, think of simple ways to lead people through products. So Facebook this week really went big on making messenger bots button-based experiences. So everything's really like a little set of menus, which isn't conversational as such, but that's what the platform's telling you to do, because that's their latest guidance. So again, we've tried to move our bots away from the previous text conversation model to buttons, carousels, images, make them a bit more rich, make them more useful and attractive. And every time you add things like this, the retention goes up, the users come back, the users do more, the conversations last longer, they're more likely to convert to a booking. It's simple, but fairly obvious and easier to build. And there's two different things I should have mentioned. In that particular example, the person's volunteered their home city to us. So the conversation had one question that we shouldn't really need to ask again. So the second time we didn't. And the conversation's just one line shorter. The more you learn about the user by asking them, there's no real artificial intelligence to it. Just store the answer they gave you. Then you can make the conversation much nicer. Don't think build it and they'll come, the whole Field of Dreams product development manual. Give people a reason to use your bot. Just don't build something and hope they'll come and find it. Think about ways you can push and pull the bot and get people to interact with it differently. So we're testing things like from our web and mobile products, we choose to send people to the bot for something they used to get by email, because it then opens a channel up for that user to do other things. So instead of having click-throughs on the email, they open conversations in Messenger. And that's proving popular. And the actual result of them receiving alerts to Messenger is more useful to us than it was by other channels. So people do more having been sent that. But from the other side, people who are already in the bot, offer them the same functionality, but they pull themselves into it. So they opt into the same thing, price alerts in this case, that we can tell them when something is worth booking. So two ways to do the same thing. They're all about retention and trying to get people to do what you want them to. Expect the unexpected is very important. People say things, as I just proved a second ago, that you probably can't answer. So book me the direct flight from Milan, blah, 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 standard thing, and can I take my dog? We've been asked that about 100 times, not the Milan bit, the dog bit, in the last year or so. Have some thick skin, because some of the things you didn't expect people to say are a bit harsh. I may have missed a slide out, sorry. People ask, I've lost my keys. Are shopping baskets enslaving humanity? I'm looking for muscle bears and big, strong muscle men. The person who asked that booked a flight to Cleveland, and I don't know why, but he obviously got what he wanted. We've had many people actually tell us to F off, which is the slide I took out clearly. The thing that over all of that you have to remember is who you develop it for. And my colleague is in the front row, and one of these testers that we had on the original Alexa skill. And in about 10 minutes of just random testing, telling them nothing at the start, just say, go and find a flight of your choice, but we're not going to steer you through how to do it. They went from fairly glum faces on the left, because it wasn't working the first time, through to very happy faces, especially young Michael in the middle, 15 minutes in, once they made it work, and they would happily do it again. My friend in the front row actually owns an Echo now, partly because of this. But it proves that once people get used to it, it's a delightful thing to do. And if that's not what we're here for, then we're not really trying. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now if anybody has a question, feel free to ask. And while you're thinking, there is somebody roaming around with a mic. Where's the mic lady? Well, if somebody wants to, here we go. If somebody wants to ask a question, please do this. For those of you who'd like to actually ask those very difficult questions, go to the Alaska Airlines website, And on the top right-hand corner, I think it's in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a lady, she's kind of a fictional character face. Her name is Jen. Ask Jen is what it's called. Ask her anything. Ask her to go out on a date. Ask her to have sex with you. Please do it. It's kind of fun. The company that did that is a company called Next IT, based in Spokane, Washington. And they've been doing this for a very long time. They're from Gonzaga University. It's very interesting to see how they came to this piece, because they started way, way at the beginning before these guys do. What is interesting now is what has happened is we now have the technology fast enough and cheap enough for it to be applicable. That's the big difference that has occurred. So why is it possible now for us to do these things, and what are we going to do? So what I'm going to try and do is, first of all, does anybody have a question they want to ask in the audience? Feel free. There we go. Please state your name, your affiliation, your drug habit, and your phone affiliation as well. Close to the face, please.
Hello? Yeah.
Very good.
Sean, HRS and Android. How do you go about developing these bots? Do you first have to go through a phase of having a kind of human chat to collect data, or are you just sort of coming up with rules by yourselves, as it were?
I think what you're asking basically is, what's the right first steps in the process of building a bot? If I can ask actually each one, I'm going to start with Mike here. I can know that from our own experience, we've got a toolkit underneath the scenes. So we actually started by building an application framework that would take any form of interface, be it human or non-human. And one of the things that we recognized very early on in our development was that we knew that in 5 years' time, a certain percentage of the interactions with our transaction engine would be non-human. As we move from explicit, how many touch points was it? All that list of touch points, to what is now, as you saw chiefly from both Kayak and from Skyscanner, is very few questions are giving you context, implicit. So you're moving from an explicit, I have to ask every question discreetly, now to whatever it is. It's like maps. People don't use maps anymore. So, Mike, why don't you ask the question?
Okay. I think there's several answers to the question, maybe. First, from a strategic standpoint, what type of bot do you want to build? I think the easiest way to build a great bot is to observe the communication that's already happening with your customer and through Facebook Messenger. So what questions are they asking? You should know the top 20 questions that are asked of your social media representatives on a daily basis. You should know how they're answering, how long it takes to answer, and things like that. I think that's how you build strategically a very easy way to move forward. The first bots that we built were rules-based. I will tell you that it's probably a bad idea to try to build a rules-based bot, because you're going to scrap it and start over and do something new. So I would highly recommend looking for an NLP, a natural language processing partner in some way. There's a lot of them. We use wit.ai, which is owned by Facebook, and also Watson from IBM for more enterprise. I would utilize those tools, when getting started. Then I would start, as said earlier, with something very simple, because what we've learned is that customers, they do ask the crazy questions. They try to break the bot. They have unrealistic expectations of what it can do. So if you have humans that are also involved in answering questions on Messenger today, you should have a clear handoff when the bot cannot answer to get to a human as well.
Okay. Matthias.
Yeah, so I think my answer is, if you would look into the textbooks, it would say you should start with a labeled corpus of conversations and then learn your machine learning classifier. Ourselves, despite having this first iteration of humans answering to text messages, it still had a different flavor than what we anticipated. So we started with creating a rule-based natural language processing engine, and our approach was to really iterate very, very fast. And basically, we knew that we would test it internally, and we knew that it would still be rough around the edges on the first iteration, but we are really used to iterating very fast. We release multiple times a week, and basically whenever we saw that a user ran stuck, we tried this to be the only person having that problem, and you really knock out one after the other of kind of bigger classes of issues. Also now moving forward, we are looking into putting more textbook. Now that we have this almost year of conversations, we're now looking into the more textbook type of methods and how they help us.
David?
More of the same from me, to be honest. I mean, the easy bit is to build one. The tools that are out there that might not have been there a year ago, 18 months ago. Things like the Microsoft framework give you tons of stuff and a community that will help you do it. So leave that to one side. I said we started with a whiteboard. I'd do something similar today. I mean, we're lucky at Skyscanner. We've got a guy who used to work in voice conversation modeling 18 years ago, trying to make TV remote controls. So we've had him as a guide through all of this, and having somebody like that, or even the community to help you do the first one, is worth it. The last thing, just to add to what's been said, we know of one European airline that built a bot quite early and has now taken the bot away because it's machine learning every human conversation it has across every platform to try and find the perfect answers. And then it'll go back to modeling those answers back to bot conversations. Then they're going to rebuild it. So they've gone complete full circle from building a simple early thing that didn't do very much, but it still wasn't as good as the human version, to go through, I think it's 200 million human messages they're now processing to come back to the drawing board with that information. So as you said, start small and figure out what you need.
And just so we're clear, that was one of the bots that is not on the site today. Just for those people who want to know, because we have to end very quickly, this session was recorded and hopefully the video will be available. I can tell you for sure that the presentations, you guys all agreed to put your presentations online, right? So the presentations will be available for download. If not, come back afterwards at the end of this and give me your card and I'll try and make sure that it gets done, but I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. So I guess really for anybody else, does anybody else have another question like this? That was a very good question, by the way. You represent a lot of hotels, so you're doing a lot of hotel booking. Anybody else got a question? Lady at the back. One last quick question. By the way, you can grab one of us immediately afterwards if you want to make a very particular question, like you want to have sex with us. It's quite okay. Yes, please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Lyndall. I'm from Nomads and Based Backpackers out of Australia. Just a quick one. I'm looking at new PMS platforms for our business at the moment and just wondered if there's been any development to the back end of you to create the transaction as a result of the bot development.
I think what you'll find is most of the people here are front-end work. I do back-end stuff, and I can tell you that we kind of predicted that this would happen, so we have actually changed the framework upon what we sit. I know that that's going to be very challenging for some of the traditional developers to try and build in things like flexible dynamic workflow. That's almost an impossible task to do. I mean, you guys have actually done a lot of work in that area. It's really hard. There is going to have to be a fundamental change in the way that technology at the back end, the transaction stuff, is managed today in order to take advantage of this. And I can tell you that very few people are prepared for that level of change. All right? Is our time up? It is kind of. So I regret that we don't have time for more questions, but I'd like to thank my panelists, Dave, Matthias, and Mike, and thank you for being a good audience.